All right, so we're going to get started now with the new topic on Real Talks. Real Talks is about talk show where we discuss certain topics on questions which I'm about to bring forward to the team now. Today I've got myself, Stitch, as a presenter, co-hosting with Garvey Campbell, and my cameraman, Luciano. Say hi to everyone. Say hi to Luciano.
Cool. Nice.
All right, so we're going to get started. We're not going to waste any more time. I'm going to go straight into the first question, which is, should the UK-US government intervene in the conflict in Israel and Palestine? Now, the question is basically based on Israel is a sovereign country, which by rights they should control what happens within their borders. So the question that we're putting to you is, obviously with what's going on with the fighting between the government and Gaza, is whether the UK and US should intervene and either stop them or put sanctions on them and trying to squash the situation, or should Israel be left to settle their own disputes?
Yeah.
Garvey?
I'm a bit torn on this one, personally. On one hand, there's the whole issue of, America, the UK having obviously their own objectives, their own reasons for going into other countries. You notice a lot of the time they don't go into a lot of the other countries that, they can't extract any benefit from. So there's that issue. There's also the issue of countries having the ability to sort their own problems out. I mean, should the UK, should the US really be sticking their nose in to other people's affairs? So that's an obvious one, because obviously they wouldn't like it if other countries were sticking their nose into the US's or the UK's affairs. They wouldn't like it. And the third thing kind of contradicts the other two, because on the other hand, on a humanitarian point, if you see an injustice or if you see something wrong, something that is going against someone's basic human rights happening in another country, there is the whole human part of you that says, well, actually, you know what, if you had the opportunity to change it for the better, do we have the right and do we have the obligation to go over there and make it better? So you got those 3 points. All of those 3 points, I haven't really resolved myself, because I'm more on the humanitarian side. If I see something going wrong, I'd like to try and fix it if possible, if it's within my power. Although I don't think that that's the reason why they are sticking their nose in where it doesn't belong.
But I think because they haven't actually stuck their nose into it, into the business at the moment. They're more just talking and saying, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this. But at the same time, your government is elected to power to look after you, look after your population. So at the same time, you're saying, oh, well, going to another country and helping them look after their population. But at the same time, you got unemployment is on the rise in both UK and the US. You've got so much problems, domestic problems and social and economic problems within your own country. But at the same time, you're looking to say, oh, well, they're doing something wrong, let's go interfere with them. But as the saying goes, sort your own house out. Sort your own house out first before you go and sort out somebody else's. I mean, it is a bit hypocritical for the US, well, for any government to get involved. I mean, if we go back to like getting involved with the Iraq War and Afghanistan and all that, that was more so beneficial for the US to secure the oil. They didn't get involved in Libya.
Exactly.
But you got the catch-22 thing there.
Anyone have any comments
points
on it? Do you think it's right for the UK and the US to, or should the UK and the US have a say in what happens on someone else's soil or in someone else's country? Okay.
I don't really think they should, because although like what's happening is really bad, and like obviously I'd like to help, I'm sure you guys would like to help. Really bad stuff is going on like all over the world, and you don't see the UK going to like South America and stopping like exploitation of women, and I don't know, you don't see them really helping that many countries around the world, and every country has their own problem. Obviously this one's probably a bit worse, but also when they went to Iraq, I didn't really follow it that much because I don't know, it was hard to follow, it's confusing. But from what I can see, they didn't actually help that much, because they just like killed loads of people. So loads of people are being killed now, but to stop that, they probably kill loads more people. So it wouldn't really be helping. So
it should be down to Israel and Palestine.
Well, yeah, no,
to
but
sort
I
the
don't know.
conflict out themselves.
Well, maybe like imagine if Israel like called up Barack Obama and was like, "Oh, can you help me?" Then maybe that's different, because that's not really sticking your nose in. That's like they asked him. But I don't know if they've asked anyone. Not really following the story.
I don't think they have.
I mean, maybe if they did, it'd be like a different question. But if they haven't asked you for help, I don't think you can really just go there.
You see this thing with the 3-day ceasefire, was that because other people said it or because they agreed on it themselves?
I believe, I might be wrong in saying this, but I believe they kind of came to the table and agreed to have a 3-day ceasefire, which lasted for about 2 hours or something.
No, they did actually. The first one failed and they just started bombing each other anyway, but then the second one they actually had a 3-day ceasefire. But I think a lot of that was because of the pressure from the rest of the world. But none of, like, I think they did this thing when they went through all the countries and they said, what countries think that there should be like a stop in this whole thing, and the only 3 countries that didn't say there should be a stop was Israel, UK and the US. So I don't think they want to get involved anyway, because they like to put it on their TV shows or on their news shows, and
makes good TV.
It does make good TV for them. And like they keep on saying how bad of a thing it is, and they get like celebrities and whatnot say, oh, free Palestine and everything else. No one's actually doing anything about it. I don't think they would put their noses into it anyway, unless they have a benefit, even though they will continue to say how much of a bad thing it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Anybody else wanna weigh in on this?
Yeah. I don't know. The whole Israel versus Palestine thing it's been going on for ages, and I don't see any way it can really be resolved, because I mean, my knowledge of the history might be a bit off, but from what I understand, you know, at one point Israel, if I'm correct, Israel was supposed to have been for the Palestinians, I believe.
The land, yeah.
Yeah. And then something screwy happened, and all of a sudden, they were chucked out. And my knowledge of the history, is admittedly very patchy.
Yeah, same. But that's the general.
That's the general thing, right?
that I've got from it as well.
So I mean, on one hand, you've got people from Israel who have been living there, been growing there, coming up. As far as they're concerned, it's their home. Generations of children been born there. It's their, they have, from their perspective, a legitimate claim on it. But on the other hand, the Palestinians as well have a legitimate claim as well, because even before that, they were there. So I think it's a hard one, like how to resolve something so twisted and so mixed up. Both of them, as far as I'm concerned, from their own unique perspectives, will have a claim that they will say, you know what, this is our land. We're going to fight to the death over it because... But I said
throughout history, there's been other examples of the same conflict situation which is happening in Israel and Palestine. Mm-hmm. You had the Indians and the Pakistanis. I mean, they were going to war over each other over the claim of land, and in the end, they just Pakistan actually broke off from India, and they formed their own country. Okay. Because it was Muslims and the Hindus, I believe. Okay. Yeah, they were actually we're going way back. They were going to war with each other over the land, and in the end, the Muslims broke off and formed Pakistan. So the Muslims all moved to Pakistan, and the Hindus stayed in India. And even so, you got the old school Yugoslavia. When that broke apart, you had the Croatians and the I think it was the Slovenians, and then a couple of other countries formed out of that. But they were going to war with each other. You had Christians, Muslims, different groups of religion were going to war with each other over the land, and the land basically just fell apart. And obviously you got the different countries which broke off from it. I mean, the only solution to the Israel problem is by breaking the country into two and have the Palestinians on one side and the Israelis on the other. I mean, from what I know and what I learned over the years for the history of the conflict is basically the Israelis have taken the land from the Palestinians.
Right.
And forced them into the Gaza Strip, and there was another strip as well they forced them into. I can't remember what the other one was called. And so all the Palestinians are moved into this kind of very small area. But and the Palestinians are like, well, basically, you kicked me out of my home. I want my home back. So I'm gonna bomb you until you give me my home back.
Yeah.
And the only solution is to basically either they clearly can't coexist. Which is clear.
Yeah, there's too much history.
There's too much arguments. They're not going to be able to coexist. So the only solution to it is to literally break the country into two, and you have the Palestinians on one side and Israel on another. But Israelis don't want to do that. They want the whole land.
And
want everything.
Do you think the Palestinians would be okay with that though?
Well, at the moment they don't really have much, so
anything
is better than nothing.
I get you.
To be honest, that's how I see it as well. As for the UK and the US getting involved, as I said, sort your own problems out before you start getting involved, because it wasn't too long ago the US had civil rights movements, but at the same time you're having the civil rights movement with like half your population not having basic human rights. You're sitting there telling the Germans how to run their country.
Yeah.
But you can't run your own country, and you're going and you're bombing Japan and everything. So
let me add something in. So at the moment, the way the world economy is running at the moment, everything's kind of connected. I mean, you've got assets in the US that are owned by Japan. You know, everyone's economy is pretty much tied in with every other person's economy to some degree. And something that happens at one part of the globe can quite easily, you know, have a negative impact or a positive impact on something, you know, on another part of the planet. If the US and the UK, and this is just hypothetical, if the UK and the US are getting involved because they realize that for the conflict to continue will have an adverse impact on life at home, do you think that would be reason enough or justification enough for them to try and get involved? Because don't get me wrong, I can understand where you're coming from with regards to the, you know, dealing with things directly that are directly problems here. But perhaps, maybe, their knowledge of how we may be negatively affected over here if this continues in Israel between Israelis and Palestinians, maybe would that be justification enough, in your opinion, for them to go over there and sort it, because they would be fixing things?
No? Does nobody want to weigh in on that?
It's just a hypothetical question, because I'm thinking, even like the whole reason of them going over with the whole Saddam Hussein thing and not oil, you know, really they shouldn't really be over there as far as I'm concerned. But if they're going over there for oil, and as far as they're concerned, that will end up easing up the economy in the US. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that's right, but that is one way of them very selfishly trying to sort out a problem, easing the economy perhaps back home, by dealing with something that is like, you know, across the water. So it's something that I think about as well. I don't believe it's right to go and stick your nose into other people's affairs by any means, but if that is their way of sorting things out, then it kind of addresses the whole thing of you saying, let's deal with all the things that are going on wrong here. They may be able to make things better, rightly or wrongly, by going and sticking a nose in someone else's business.
Yeah, that actually does make sense, because if, as you said, if the conflict is affecting people's living back home, obviously there are certain economical factors. Obviously, Israel do export products from Israel to America, well, pretty much to everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if there's conflict, they're not gonna the exportation is gonna come down, whether because damage to factories or damage to the raw materials that they need to produce whatever they're producing. So as long as the conflict does go on, it would actually affect everybody else because of the conflict. So in that sense, you could put an argument to say, UK, US, well, not just UK and US, but almost any other country whose economy is affected, especially if a country's economy is actually reliant on what Israel are exporting, and if Israel are not exporting it, then their economy is going to suffer. So then their people are going to suffer. So on that side of the argument, yes, you can say there will be a legitimate reason to intervene. I agree with that personally. Anyway,
I think I can't remember where I checked it out, but the US and the UK, to a large degree, they don't really produce much. We import a hell of a lot, and we pay for a hell of a lot, as far as as far as my understanding goes. But we don't actually produce much here. So our economy and how well we live over here can very easily be affected by other countries who have issues, whereby the production or what is produced that is imported in, if that's affected, that affects everyone here, you know.
I thought that in general, because Israel's more bombing Gaza, more of their stuff is like not ruined, so they can still export stuff. But in general, a lot of people are boycotting either companies who support it or anything that comes from them anyway. So on that point, there would be no economic benefit from stopping it because people are kind of boycotting it anyway. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the thing you said about how our economy relies on other countries, blah blah. Well, in my opinion, that's not justification for us to go there and do anything, because like whose fault is it that we don't produce anything? Well, it's our fault. So if you don't want to be affected by other countries, which are obviously going to have their own problems, because what country is at peace for its whole life, then well, you made that decision, whoever, I don't know how it works, but whoever in our government made that decision that our country is not going to produce anything, well, then you're going to have to suffer with those problems, aren't you? Like, I'd love for our country to produce stuff, that'd be really cool, but
just to counter that, what your country produces is based pretty much on, not so much on what you want to produce, because I reckon if most countries could produce everything that your country needs without actually importing, most countries would do that because it's cheaper. But situations, your climate for one, and we can't grow bananas here. We have to import bananas. It's not like somebody chose, oh, we're not going to produce bananas anymore. We can just import it from the Caribbean or from
but
South
clothes,
America.
we could make clothes. But no, we want to get them cheap from people who are working in disgusting conditions in other countries.
Yeah, clothes. I mean, I said certain productions that most countries make. I mean, the UK do actually produce clothes. They do actually produce clothes, but it's not on a massive scale as importing it from cheaper markets, from Brazil, Japan, wherever. It's a lot cheaper to import from those markets on that specific export. It is cheaper because it's cheaper market out there, cheaper labor, cheaper raw materials as well. Raw materials over here will cost probably 10 times as much as it will cost in Brazil. So deciding to import it from another country is not really, I mean, I can't see that as a negative thing.
But if they made that decision.
But the decision was made because, well, I see a decision being made because it's beneficial to the country, to your population, to actually import it from somewhere else, because it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, obviously I can see what they did, but if you are making that decision, you need to know the consequences of that decision. Obviously, the positives, you're getting cheap clothes, but negatives, okay, what's going to happen if this country breaks into civil war, whatever? Like, you have to know that, so it's not really an excuse.
But then the argument is, if that country is getting bombed, then you are losing that market, and you are affected by it. So by interfering, to not to go there and just bomb the hell out of everybody, but to interfere and try and sort the problem out, so that you can then get your cheap clothes and cheap markets back.
Well, I don't know. Okay, here you go.
No, but like, if the whole point of you interfering with a country is simply for your own benefit, like if people are dying and the only reason you're going to try and stop it is for your own benefit, isn't that kind of wrong in itself?
Yeah.
Yes,
and
I do agree with that. But then it comes down to the whole thing which we was talking about in the last show, where people do stand by when two people are fighting and not getting involved. People stand by and watch and video record it. I mean, it's pretty much not the same thing, but on a larger scale.
But you said the UK and the US, they are the two biggest powers in the world, really.
Yeah.
So they can't really use that excuse as a whole bystander thing, because they are the most important people. They are the two countries that if they do anything, everyone else is going to follow them. So like they will continually put it on TV, like I said, but not do anything about it until it's for their benefit. But I'm trying to think. That's okay. It's like it's they're not going to do it because there is no benefit from them. Like, there is no benefit to them from doing this, apart from to make themselves look good. And they already look good because they are the most important people, and they're pretending to by doing the whole hashtags and news reports and stuff on it.
Yeah, celebrities get involved with Free Palestine and etc. I mean, it has become more of more of a PR kind of thing, where like celebrities get involved. Everyone's kind of just talking and not many people are actually doing anything. Media reporting, oh, this is what's going on in Israel. Oh, Gaza, Palestinians are bad because they're firing rockets into populated areas, and then hiding behind the population of Palestine. So, I mean, from what I've seen and what I know of the conflict, the Israelis are retaliating to is it Hamas? Hamas, who are firing rockets at them and then hiding behind the population. I mean, if somebody punches you in your face and hides behind somebody else, and you want to get at them, you're going to go through the person that they're hiding behind. I mean, I'm not justifying it, as it's not a good thing to do that, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit there and let you fire rockets at me and then hide behind innocent women and children. I'm going to fire back. And if innocent women and children get killed, well, that's your fault for hiding behind them. I mean, if you came out, to me, it looks like if Hamas came out and was like, all right, if we're going to go to war with each other, let's meet on a battlefield and just fight it out. But they're not doing that. They're kind of like, run out, throw a little punch, and then run back and hide. So with the whole Israelis retaliating to it, I mean, people are saying, oh, the Israelis are bad. But I don't really see it as them being bad. I see it as them trying to defend themselves. But obviously, in that situation, innocent people are getting killed, which is wrong. It's always wrong when innocent women and children and even innocent men are getting killed. So I know it's a very touchy situation that Israel are in, which they've actually put themselves in, because if they never took the land from Palestinians in the first place, you wouldn't be in this situation. But you put yourself in a situation, and obviously this is the consequence of it.
I think... You got something to say?
It's like going back to like the first thing we were talking about, but maybe if the UK wanted to help, like, or the US, not for our own good, but for the good of the people there, like, rather than going to like fight against people, I don't know how it would work, but maybe couldn't they like fund a charity that would go and like rescue people, and they could come here as like refugees or like something, I don't know, something, or just fund like the Red Cross to go there, and I know it will never happen because they're not nice like that, but if we actually wanted a solution, they could like go there and fund like medical resources like for the people that are being injured, or like something like that, rather than actually fighting.
But then it's finding people who are willing to go out there to help the people that are being injured and killed and etc. I mean, I don't want to go there. I'm not good. I mean, I'm all for helping people and that, but some people do actually, would going out there. But I mean, that would be one way for it, not to solve the situation, but at least trying to help the situation by helping the people that are getting caught in the crossfire between Hamas and Israel.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really wants to get involved, because like going to another country and risking your life is not something of the people of like our generation. Like, I find that's kind of First World War-ish, where you go to a different country, risk your life for your country, or risk your life just for the nationalism and like, oh, humanity, I want to save other people. They're not going to go over there purely for that reason. And also it would cost a lot of money to send people over there, because you have to have a hell of a lot of resources. It's not like you're saying, okay, I'm going to go to this country because one person's dying, so I'm only saying a team of 3 or 4 doctors over there. It's hundreds of people, and although like employment is an issue in this country at the moment, that's not. I don't think that's someone's career prospects for charity. That's all I had to say.
Echoing what was just said there, you got to look at where we're living now. Like, back when we were sending troops over to fight for the country, the majority of those people have a deep history and past with the country. For years, we've been outsourcing jobs, bringing in new people to work those jobs, rightly, wrongly, or indifferently. That's what's been happening. So we live in one of the most multicultural cities, countries on the planet. Are some of these people realistically going to want to go and fight for the country? But when their initial reason for coming over here, and they were welcomed to try and keep costs down and get, cheap labour, are these people going to be the people who you're going to be sending across overseas? Or are they going to be willing to go and, fight overseas for the country, when really they're here to better their lifestyle, and that's it. You know, I mean, the whole nationalism thing, that's a really good incentive for you to, you know, pick up your gun and go to war. But echoing what you said, I don't think a lot of people are going to be willing to do that. And on top of that, it's going to be costing the economy money as well. When the whole point, one of the biggest you know, things that the government is trying to do is try to lower costs, balance out our economy. You know, we had a crash not too long ago in the market. We don't want that to happen again. You know, I'm hearing all kinds of stuff that's happening overseas. Greece, for instance, is having a hard time of it. Athens in particular. And if I hear what's happened over there, I wouldn't want that to happen where I am. So on one hand, I wouldn't want the economy to get messed up. On the other hand, I can't see too many people being willing to go over there and stick their nose in someone else's business for national pride, because we have a eclectic mix of different people, different lineages in this country. It's not like it was before, you know.
Two things I was going to say. One is, yeah, they're not going to go up because it's easier just to hashtag it rather than actually go and do something about it. And the US and the UK also have this whole thing where, is it out of all the international problems in the world, all things going wrong in the world at the time, is this the one that they can get the most out of, kind of thing? Like, it would be more beneficial for them and more of a good light on them and safer for them to, say, sort out things to do with Ebola than the Gaza Strip. So it's not, I don't think it's a priority, even though it will be on the news every day. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a good question. We can move on to next one. Any more points on this? No. All right. So we're going to move on to the second question.